Coming up on The Returned.
It was nighttime. It just felt like I couldn't get up. I couldn't get out of bed. I started having a seizure. I went out of my body into something that felt like
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. Before we begin today's conversation, I just wanted to take a brief personal moment. This day back in 1991 was the beginning of the longest, hardest, most beautiful chapter of my life. That year, I became a mother. The year life stopped being about only me. The year a little boy entered the world and changed mine forever. Happy 35th birthday to my firstborn, Styles, the one who started it all. And in many ways, that's what The Returned is really about. The moments that change us forever. The moments that divide our lives into before and after. Today, we sit with Nik Heartsong, a near-death experiencer whose experience changed everything she believed about illness, healing the body, and what it truly means to be alive. Nik, thank you for being here and welcome to The Returned.
Thank you for having me, MJ, and happy birthday to your son.
Thank you. Before we get into the heart of our conversation, I would like to ground the audience in who you were before this experience and whether religion or spirituality played a role in your life or your upbringing.
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. I don't often talk about the before. Yeah, before the near-death experience, I was actually working and living in San Francisco at a finance company down in the financial district of San Francisco. Um, and yeah, it's crazy to think about that because my life is just so different now. But I lived in the city. Just was completely immersed in the city life of going out to restaurants and just hanging out with friends and city events. And I was also training for half Ironmans around San Francisco. So I would bike all around the city and Sausalito and the Bay, like over the San Francisco Bridge almost every single weekend for long bike rides, and also running around the city and swimming without a wetsuit in the San Francisco Bay almost every morning. And if I think about that now, I wonder how it was even possible because I was also working full time. But it was a fun life, just very different. And my childhood was also different than that. I grew up on my family's farm near Yosemite National Park, which was a 3.5-hour drive from the city where we lived. And then we would go there on the weekends and for the summer, and I was just totally wild, living barefoot and free, like climbing in the trees and sliding down the mountains on a cardboard box and riding my dirt bike around barefoot. Um, and yeah, if I think about what I was doing most of the time, I was by myself in nature, just like building tree houses, walking in the river where there were blackberry bushes, and I would pick the blackberries and eat them all day, and then maybe save some to make a pie later with my grandpa who was there. Um, but yeah, it was really wild. And at one point, well, actually, I think more than one time I was bitten by a tick, but one time in particular, I was bitten behind my ear. And I realize now, later, much later, that that was the beginning of my Lyme journey from getting Lyme disease from the tick. But I didn't know it at the time when I was about 10 years old.
Wow. And did spirituality or any religion play a part in that upbringing?
No, I mean, now I would say that that was the most spiritual way to live, just connected to nature and very simple, like farm life. Um, but no, my family wasn't spiritual or religious.
Interesting. Isn't that? So you sound like you had a fabulous life. I was raised on a farm as well, so I know how much fun that can be. Can you take us into the moments leading up to you leaving your body?
Sure. So at that time, I was living and working in San Francisco, but I started having a lot of health issues that I couldn't explain and couldn't identify. And I went to lots of different doctors, both Western medicine and alternative, like acupuncture and chiropractic. And no one could really give me answers. They kind of just helped me to manage the symptoms with weekly chiropractic adjustments and the treatments. Um, yeah, so eventually I was just in chronic pain and I had to stop training for the half Ironman. And eventually actually had to quit my job in finance. And it was around that time that I had the near death experience. The only the main thing that I was focusing on that time was actually my yoga practice because I that was like my kind of my savior, my way to kind of function still because I didn't have my job. I couldn't find answers from the doctors or other practitioners. And so I would go to yoga every day for like 2 hours and do my yoga practice. Um, so I was integrating spirituality in that way in that time because it was bhakti yoga, which is all about devotion, and you're usually singing mantras as part of the practice, as well as doing the physical asanas. So at that point, spirituality had come into my life through yoga, and I was still living in San Francisco. Um, but yeah, my world had kind of become very small compared to how it had been before I started getting sick. I just went to yoga and did everything I could to manage my health and like cooking really nourishing foods and soups. And I just spent almost all my time managing my health and my symptoms. And then when the day came of the near death experience, I was in San Francisco and it was nighttime and I just felt like I couldn't get up. I couldn't get out of bed, and at one point, I was in bed, and I started having a seizure. But when you're having a full body seizure, you don't realize it in the moment. It wasn't until after I came out of the seizure that I realized I had had a seizure. But I would say that the full body seizure went on for about 3 minutes. And during that time, I went out of my body and into something that felt like a void space, kind of an inky, black, like infinite void space. And it honestly felt quite scary in that moment. It wasn't like white light going through a tunnel. It was more just nothingness. But not in a terrible nothingness way, just like, an infinite space way. And then, when I finally came back into my body after the seizure and being in that void space, is when I felt an activation of my entire energy system in my body in a way that I had never felt before. I felt like something flowing through the meridians and energy lines of my body, and without even thinking about it, I just started, like, singing and chanting the songs in Sanskrit that I didn't know before. Um, and when I did that, I felt my whole body activating into this white light, this sphere of, like, diamond white light. And I kind of felt a dissolving of my body into that white light. And what I could only explain is kind of a dissolving into source or into everything. So, yeah, my story isn't, uh I don't know, it's not as simple like, I went into a white light. It was like when I came back into my body, I felt the activation of, like, my sacred vessel of my body as a light body.
It's interesting. So, at that point where you had the seizure and then you came back, was that right away when you were, um, chanting the, Sanskrits?
Yeah, Sanskrit is a sacred language in India that most of the mantras are sung in. And yes, it was immediate, and I believe my interpretation of it is that when I was in the void space, kind of out of my body, that I connected with a higher aspect of myself or my soul that remembered that language, that light language, as just part of my cellular memory or my soul memory, and that when I came back into my body, I was still connected to that aspect of my being, like the higher aspect.
And then that moved you in to a white diamond-like light. Is
Mhm.
that or
Right, it's
sphere,
like
I should say.
I my eyes were closed at that point, and it felt like I could just see this diamond white light all around me, like, really going into infinity, and I felt the energy flowing through my whole body, kind of just in rivers going around, yeah, everywhere.
And this all started from a seizure.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, and so had that happened before? Have you had a seizure before that?
No, it never happened before that or after that, and it took me a really long time to understand what caused the seizure. And now, because of my work in bioresonance as a bioresonance therapist, I now understood that at that time my body was overloaded with different infections like the Lyme disease, as well as different parasites, specifically tapeworm, which can cause seizures.
Interesting. So would you say that well, you did say that it was an activation. And now when you look back on it right now, do you feel that this was a complete activation to change the maybe trajectory of your life at that time?
Definitely, definitely. It definitely was an activation, and it all happened for a reason to change my life and get me out of what was a comfortable situation with my life in San Francisco working in finance, which may seem perfect from the outside, but it wasn't aligned, I believe, with my soul's true purpose, which was to learn how to heal my own body and then be able to share that with other people. Um, yeah, to be more live life more spiritually and intentionally, outside of the city vibes.
I agree with that 100%. That is for sure. So when you came back to basically after returning, what do you think the hardest part of trying to function in this life after having something like that was?
Hmm. Yeah, the hardest part ongoing, it's been almost 10 years since that happened, is just functioning as a human in this human world, in this human reality, and really being present for every little moment of every day. And while also remembering that we're always connected to that greater source, that vastness, the infinite vastness, like really staying connected to that infinite higher aspect while living the everyday life and taking care of my son, um, cooking breakfast, cleaning the dishes, just remembering that we are divine, and that those I really think that it's, like, in the connections with other people that we can really remember our divinity, um, so the hard part is remembering.
right? And may I ask, why do you think you needed to have this experience?
This experience led me on my journey into the jungle and with medicine, and it still took me many years of healing to recover my body and recover my nervous system after this experience. And that journey helped me to understand the body and how the body works in such an intricate way, and to know the truth 100% without any doubt in my mind that we are energy beings made up of vibrations and frequencies, and therefore it is possible to heal and to see what's going on with the body and the energy field with a device like bioresonance. And that, like, 100% knowing through my experience that it works and that it's real and true, that we are energetic beings and can be healed with frequency, is what allowed me to start my work in bioresonance and to help others to heal in a really integrative way, like that, knowing that we are energetic beings, and also to incorporate all of the healing tools that I used on myself, like with herbs and red light therapy and the bioresonance itself.
You speak about the body as more than biology. How has your understanding of healing changed the way you care for yourself emotionally, spiritual, and physically?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that whenever I experience a symptom, I have some sensation in my body or even an emotion like anger, my first question is always, what's the root of this? Like, what's the root energetically? Because when we have a symptom in our body or an emotion like anger, the root is always energetic. So when the liver is hurting and there's even liver disease, it's usually because of stagnant, stored anger that hasn't been able to release. So I'm always looking at the connections. I'm not just trying to cover up the symptom or get rid of the pain. I'm asking, what is the pain telling me?
I love that actually, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that others watching will understand that as well. Do you think this experience changed the way you viewed suffering?
Yeah, I really see suffering as grace. Um, and that's actually a teaching that I later learned from Richard Rudd, who wrote The Gene Keys, or channeled the Keys, which is another system or way of seeing our how our consciousness works and evolves and how it's related to the body as well. And he teaches that suffering is grace, because if we didn't have suffering, we wouldn't appreciate our human experience and our human life and everything. If everything was perfect and we were always healthy and happy, we wouldn't even understand what it meant to be happy because we wouldn't have anything to compare it to. So we choose to have this human experience from our higher aspect, our higher soul. We come into this human experience for suffering so that we can have this experience and then bring all the knowledge that we learned from that suffering back into the collective consciousness. That's what I believe.
So this near-death experience this near-death experience, this seizure that's never happened again,
Never.
was an
No.
activation to wake you up, basically, to show you things about your body so that you would then kind of push it forward and help others learn that they can do the same thing, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And so you believe that we can all heal our own selves.
Yes. That's the most empowering insight, that we can all heal ourselves actually with just frequency alone. It's beautiful also to use other elements like from the earth, like herbs um and sunshine. But the other revelation is also that everything is happening for a reason and a purpose. Like all the suffering that I experienced and the pain that I experienced happened uh to transform my life. Because without that, nothing would have changed. I would have stayed at the same level of awareness, and I wouldn't have learned everything that I know about the body and about the universe.
You know, Nick, I'm wondering, do you feel that humanity is waking up um, spiritually right now?
Definitely. I think that there's a lot of noise out there right now to distract us from that truth, that we are waking up, and that our frequency is rising, and more people uh, who I encounter just on a daily basis are talking about frequencies and bioresonance and red light therapy and sound healing, and people are coming together to dance under the full moon. um, and just to gather to remember who we are. I think that's where a lot of the really big shift happens, is when people come together and share their experiences.
How do you think this experience changed the way you show up in the world today?
Every person I see, I look at them like they're a fractal of God, because I believe that that's what they are. And I believe that they're whole, they're emanating this diamond white light, and that maybe there's like something blocking them from seeing that or feeling that, but I see that in everyone. And I believe that everyone is whole and connected as one to source or to a higher power, and if they choose to work with me, for example, with bioresonance, the goal is to clear anything that's getting in the way of that pure essence.
And I just wanted to step back for just a moment about the NDE and how it felt and what, if any, what did it feel like for you? And like, what did it feel like to have left the body? Did you see or hear anything?
Yeah, in the moment of having the seizure and being in the inky black void space, I didn't hear anything. But after I came back, when I was having like the white light frequency experience, I felt connected to a higher power that felt like just pure love. Pure love that was endless. Like that, it felt like that was the fabric of the whole universe. And then after that experience, as I went on my journey into the jungle, did communicate with different spirits and energies, like previous teachers, my gymnastics teacher, and my grandpa. And then as I became more and more connected to that higher aspect of myself that I had experienced in the NDE, I was constantly just in communication with different higher frequencies and energies like angelics and guardians, spirit animals.
How did you communicate or see your grandfather or your gymnastics teacher? How did that happen?
That happened in my first experience in Costa Rica, which was totally unplanned, but it happened there the first time I went to Costa Rica. And I was really deep in the ceremony with the medicine. Again, like feeling the energy moving through my body, especially with the shaman who was singing very traditional medicine songs, which are intended to move the energy in a certain way and also heal the energy. So that was kind of the next time that I had that kind of experience where I felt the energy moving in my body, since the NDE. And in that ceremony is when I felt my grandpa come to me as a presence. Like, his energy, I could feel it, and I could feel him just sending me so much love and care and telling me that everything was okay, that, like, that nothing was wrong after all the suffering, that everything was okay and that I was held and that I was always taken care of. And then also my gymnastics coach, who was a huge presence in my life, just came back like a really bubbly, effervescent energy, like smiling. He looked like Albert Einstein. So he just brought a lot of joy into my being and into the ceremony.
That sounds lovely. And your gymnastics teacher, I take it, was transitioned already?
Yes, yeah, both my grandpa and my coach.
You know, I don't know much about that, but I do know that that also changes a lot of lives, doing a medicine awakening. And I find it very interesting the stories people bring back from just that. So I want to kind of pivot towards what you believe around death. So, what do you believe happens to us when we die? Do we stay in a realm like Earth, or go to a realm like Earth, or do we just go into another dimension? What are your beliefs around that?
Wow. Um, I believe that it depends on the evolution of our soul because I believe that we live multiple lifetimes and that when we die, we go into a transitional space to help our soul transition from this life experience and to integrate everything that we learned from this life experience and to also heal any potential trauma we might have experienced. And I believe we eventually drop the layer of our ego personality that we had in this lifetime to reconvene, re-merge with that higher aspect of ourselves, which may have experienced thousands of other lifetimes. And so we integrate all of the knowledge and growth that we experienced in this lifetime into that higher consciousness with the help of different spirit guides and beings who can help us with that transitional space. And then depending on the evolution of our soul and where we come from originally, and also what our desires are for future learning, we go to a different space. And I believe that the universe is infinite and vast, that there are many other planets, many other universes, and each one of those spaces have different purposes of learning and growth. And really, Earth is the only place where we forget who we are when we're here, and that gives us the opportunity to learn a lot and experience a lot. But I think the potentials are really infinite for where we choose to go after this lifetime.
Do you think that we come back here, we have this amnesia, but then, say, through our lives, we start remembering little things about ourselves, or we may have experiences like you or I and many others out there, but some don't. And I'm wondering if that you think that's on purpose. Like, are some here just to be, and others here to experience something different? Or is everybody here learning how to basically return to themselves?
Yeah, I think it's definitely on purpose, and that we are all here to return to ourselves, and we're all just at different places on that journey. Um, so I can imagine what my life would have been like if I hadn't had the NDE, for example. I'd still be working and living in San Francisco and just living my life and being happy in that way, and just not ever opening my mind to the awareness about what's possible and the other side and what happened after the NDE, and my life just would have been different, and that's okay. Nothing is good or bad or right or wrong about having a spiritual awakening or not, because living your life intentionally every day, for example, building a family, is also a beautiful life, even if you don't like go out and do plant medicine. So I think everyone is just on their own path and where they're supposed to be on their journey. And after we die, I believe we remember this, that we're all part of a greater connected source, and and that we're all just like living our journey to remember that and bring that knowledge home.
Nick, many people are watching and they silently struggle with chronic illness, exhaustion. What would you want them to know about hope when the body feels like it's failing them?
It's possible to heal anything and everything. Um, yeah, that's the main thing. And that underneath that pain and suffering is their light body. What I experienced is that diamond white light. And so healing is about clearing out what's getting in the way, the blockages. So those are manifesting as physical things, maybe pain, maybe some kind of disease or imbalance. Um, but it's about healing those naturally, but also about the energetic side of it. Like where in your life and in your body are there energetic blockages to that healing? Like where are you doing something that doesn't feel aligned for you? Or maybe where are you not saying no when you need to say no to something? So it's about energetic boundaries too. Um, so when it comes to healing, it's really about looking at the integrative picture of the mind, the body, and the spirit, because we are that. We are spiritual energy beings. And I think that's the most important thing that I share.
How do you stay grounded while carrying this experience and the insights that many may not fully understand?
I make a really big effort to be in my physical body, to be embodied. So I have a lot of physical practices like yoga and Pilates and swimming and walking barefoot through the forest. And if I don't do that, I really can get ungrounded and feel quite lost in the energetic and spiritual side of things. So I've really made an effort to be embodied. And being embodied also means like being able to sit in the uncomfortable spaces, like to look at my shadows and the traumas that I experienced while also like going on this healing journey.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um, do you fear death now?
I don't fear death, no, because I know that we are connected to God and connected to Source, and that's always where we're going to end up. Um, yeah, I don't believe in death, I would say, because it's really not a death. It's just a transition, like a door where we're going from this little identity that we have here in this life into our bigger selves, our higher selves. And I think that that transition can sometimes be a little bit scary. When I think about the transition of letting go and shedding this identity that I have in this lifetime and my story, I do feel nervous about it. Even though I know that it will lead to something beautiful, I feel nervous about like the complete shedding of my ego and identity and story from this lifetime, because yeah, that's what I know is who I am, and my reverence for what's bigger than that has come from this near-death experience and plant medicine and everything, and it just feels so big and infinite and vast, and to think about, like, dissolving into that infiniteness, is a lot for a human brain to comprehend.
For those who feel deeply connected to you, your work, can you share your services, teachings, published works, anything that you offer? And also, where can people find you?
Sure, thank you. Yes, my main work now is with quantum bioresonance. I use a device that can work remotely to scan your entire body and energy field and see everything that's going on down to great detail, even more detail than a blood test. So it can see if you have parasites, if you have an infection like a bacteria. It can see how your meridians are flowing and how your chakras are balanced. Um, and then we can do a complete scan, and I make a protocol based on that, as well as do a frequency treatment with the machine. And everything is on my website at wingedhearthealing.com. And I also share a lot of blog posts there about how bioresonance works, about different healing protocols, like from autoimmune disease, like as well as my own personal experiences on the blog.
I'm very curious. How did you get into this quantum bioresonance? How did you find this and create this tool?
Yeah, it's really a culmination of my life experiences. I studied cognitive psychology and neuroscience in university at UC San Diego. And then I was working as a neuroscience researcher at NASA Ames Research Center about how the mind works and how to heal from certain imbalances, especially ADHD and autism, using different tech technology. So we were working with that. And then when I went into the jungle in Costa Rica and experienced plant medicine, there were a couple people there who were offering bioresonance, and it just seemed like the perfect transition from learning about the body as frequency and vibration to be able to use a tool that measures those frequencies and vibrations in order to see exactly what's going on. Like, it just made complete sense.
What does the tool look like?
Mine is a quantum tool, so it's a software, and the software itself can be on a computer or any device, and it has a database of all of the frequencies in existence, like of every single bacteria, every single parasite, every single virus. It has the frequency of a perfectly resonating heart chakra. It has the frequencies of every Bach flower essence, for example. And then it uses your voice and your photo, including iridology, scanning your eyes, to scan your energy field. And then those frequencies for the healing can be emitted as sound frequencies, like in the original Rife machines, who was the first like father of bioresonance. But they can also be shared like with wristbands, or a device inside of the house that's emitting the frequencies to the entire house.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know if you can see it, but right behind my shoulder, do you see that circle or right there?
Yeah.
My husband builds these frequency, he just all of a sudden start building these frequency generators. And they hold so many different frequencies, but it's filled with crystal. So all different types of crystals and copper. And then it pushes out these frequencies. One thing I can attest to is frequencies really work because when I'm extremely anxious and normally I don't have it on today, but I have that on usually sitting behind me. I am not kidding you. You can feel the vibration going through your body. So that's called a Taurus
Mhm.
is what it is. And he just out of the blue started creating these things. So It's something we believe in, actually. I'd really like to have a session and see how it works with you. That would be very interesting, don't you think?
Yes, I love that, and yeah, actually, it was Nikola Tesla who was the main person who started building these coils that would emit the frequencies, and yeah, it's
And
super
we have
powerful.
those all over our house. So, probably not as strong as what you're speaking of, because I think I read that, or maybe you said something's coming. 100,000 hertz to 3,000 hertz coming? Something new
Yeah,
that's coming?
so what makes the bioresonance different from like a frequency device like that is that it's emitting the very specific frequencies that you need based on your scan. So if it sees an infection, for example, say a bacteria like E. coli is a really common bacteria. It will know the frequency of that bacteria, and then it will generate the exact opposite frequency to cancel it out, like noise canceling headphones. So theoretically, you could use the device that you already have that your husband made and input the frequencies from my device into that device and then emit it into your whole house. And it would clear whatever the bacteria, but you could also put positive frequencies, for example, the frequencies of the Bach flower essences or of sacred geometry.
Yeah, I think he uses that, actually. Very interesting, though. This is something that, I think is a game changer. I think, it's really coming to, and I think a lot of people are understanding that.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people are who come to me, they've tried a lot, and then when they come to me, they're open to it and they see, what the bioresonance can see, and they feel the difference right away after receiving the frequency treatment. And for me too, it was also immediate. Like I had insomnia for years before I tried the bioresonance, and after using it for just a week, the insomnia went away and I could finally sleep through the night. So you can really feel the difference.
So we're down to the last question. Everyone who returns with a truth. What truth did you return with that you would want humanity to know right now?
Wow. We are energetic beings, and our bodies are sacred vessels of light capable of healing ourselves and creating our realities um, based on our frequencies.
That was beautiful. Nik, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with us today. I found you on Facebook and I was so excited. I'm so glad that I reached out. Experiences like yours really do challenge the way we think about healing, consciousness, and what it truly does mean to be human. And I absolutely love your take, and I love what you're doing and your service that you're providing humanity. So thank you for bringing your light and your truth to the returned today.
Wow, thank you so much for creating this space for people to share about their spiritual journeys and awakenings and near-death experiences because I hope that, yeah, it gives purpose to be able to share it.
It does, right? I understand, and I couldn't agree more. So, to the audience, sometimes the greatest healing does not begin when the body changes. It actually begins when we see ourselves change. Take a moment today to listen more deeply to your own life, your own body, and your own inner knowing. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.